I spent 5 long years building an empire from a dingy, windowless basement, surviving on cold ramen and sheer will. Also, I could give Sophia the life of luxury she always dreamed of. She was my high school sweetheart, the girl who promised to stand by me through thick and thin. But the moment real wealth entered the picture, her eyes turned toward higher society. On the very night I was preparing to sign a multi-million-dollar merger with Vance Enterprises, a deal that would finally make us set for life, I came home early to celebrate with her, carrying a bouquet of her favorite white roses and a box of expensive chocolates. Instead of a warm embrace, the silence of our penthouse was shattered by low, intimate laughter coming from our master bedroom. I pushed the door open slightly, only to freeze as my blood ran cold. Sophia was wrapped in the arms of Julian Vance, the arrogant heir to the very company I was merging with, mocking my relentless work ethic while sipping my finest vintage wine. Julian sneered, calling me a pathetic, workaholic dog who would never truly belong in their elite social circle, while Sophia simply laughed, placing her ring on the nightstand and declaring that she was tired of waiting for a man who smelled like cheap coffee and burnt oil. I didn't break down, nor did I raise my voice. I slowly closed the door, stepped back into the shadows, and let a cold, calculated silence take over my body. Every ounce of love and devotion I had held for her vanished in that single breath, replaced by a dark, unwavering clarity. They thought I was just a naive engineer they could walk all over and throw away like trash, completely unaware that the entire foundation of Julian's family empire rested entirely on a proprietary software code that only I possessed. And by tomorrow morning, their glittering world of privilege was going to collapse completely. By 3 a.m, while the entire city slept peacefully under the cover of darkness, I sat alone in my dim high-tech office, my fingers flying effortlessly across the illuminated mechanical keyboard. I didn't waste a single second on useless tears or bitter regret. Instead, I quietly revoked Julian's administrative access from the central server, completely erased every single piece of cloud data tied to his family's prestige, and listed our shared luxury penthouse for an immediate cash sale at 50% below market value. Investors jumped at the golden opportunity within minutes, transferring millions directly into my private, untraceable offshore account before the sun had even begun to rise over the skyline. By dawn, I had systematically packed my entire life into a single sleek leather duffel bag, leaving behind only the cold, empty rooms and a signed set of divorce papers neatly placed on the polished marble dining table. Sophia woke up late in the afternoon, stretching casually in her silk robes, completely unaware that every credit card in her designer wallet had been instantly cancelled and that her name had been permanently removed from every single bank account. When she finally stumbled downstairs, expecting her daily gourmet breakfast spread, she was met not by a devoted husband, but by a team of aggressive moving professionals brutally hauling away every piece of luxury furniture, art, and decor. Panicking, she frantically grabbed her phone to call Julian for help, only to find his line perpetually busy as his family's corporate shares began a catastrophic, unprecedented nosedive on the stock market. She sprinted out to the driveway in complete disbelief, only to watch my custom sports car disappear down the winding modern boulevard, leaving her standing alone in a barren, empty mansion with nothing to her name, except her own selfish choices and a rapidly growing sense of sheer horror. 2 days later, the annual Vance Legacy Gala was held at the grandest hotel in the city, an extravagant event where the elite gathered to celebrate what was supposed to be the biggest corporate acquisition of the decade. Sophia arrived on Julian's arm, wearing a flashy red dress she had begged him to buy, desperately trying to project an aura of unshakable confidence, despite her private life falling apart at the seams. But as the music faded and the grand mahogany doors burst open, a heavy silence fell over the crowded, glittering ballroom. I walked in wearing a bespoke black tuxedo, surrounded by a formidable team of top-tier international attorneys and federal auditors, holding the legal documents that proved Julian's father had fraudulently transferred company assets to cover up massive, illegal debts. Julian's face turned deathly pale as security officers stepped forward, placing heavy steel handcuffs around his wrists right in front of flashing press cameras and gasping board members. Sophia stood frozen in absolute terror as the federal agents officially froze all of Julian's assets on the spot, seizing his bank accounts, luxury vehicles, and even the expensive diamond necklace resting on her collarbones. She frantically turned to the wealthy guests she had spent months trying to impress, begging for a single lifeline. But everyone turned their backs on her in disgust, refusing to be associated with a ruined family. In a desperate, humiliating attempt to save herself, she rushed toward me through the crowd, her voice trembling violently as she claimed she was manipulated and that she had loved me all along. I looked down at her with cold, unyielding eyes, stepping back as my head of security blocked her path, letting her know in front of the entire world that her superficial charms no longer held an ounce of power over me. The golden evening sun was setting over the city as I stood on the top-floor helipad of the newly rebranded Vance-Sterling Tower, adjusting my watch as a sleek private helicopter landed gently in the background. Down below, on the dusty, noisy street corner, Sophia was frantically pacing outside the closed gates of her former estate, trying desperately to reach anyone who would take her call. But her contact list was a barren wasteland. She finally looked up and caught sight of me standing far above her, the man she had dismissed as a nobody now holding absolute control over the very financial empire she had tried to trade up for. Tears of genuine, agonizing regret streamed down her face as the harsh reality finally sank into her mind. She had traded a man who would have given her the entire world for a superficial lie that vanished in a single weekend. I pulled out my phone one last time, seeing a string of desperate, begging text messages from her pleading for a second chance, promising she would change, and begging me to remember our sweet past. Without a single hint of hesitation or emotion, I selected her contact, tapped the delete button, and permanently blocked her number from my life forever. As the helicopter blades began to whirl, kicking up a gust of wind, I stepped inside the luxurious cabin, leaving behind the ghost of my past, and the woman who had destroyed her own future out of pure greed. The city lights began to twinkle below me like a sea of endless possibilities, a stark reminder that true power isn't about holding on to betrayal, but having the courage to tear down the old life and build something far greater from the ashes.